My name is Sehin Teferra. I'm the founder and current director of Setaweet Movement, which is a feminist movement based here in Addis Ababa. It was founded 7 years ago. We work on gender equality issues. Our main aim is the creation of a mass-based women's rights movement so that men and women, boys and girls are empowered to struggle for both gender equality and for justice. And we also work on sexual violence, particularly around accountability and providing services for the survivors of sexual violence. Women's representation in formal politics in Ethiopia is actually quite high compared to not just African but global averages. We have a 42% representation at the parliament, at the federal parliament, which is very high compared to the African average of 25%. As you know, when the reform process started, there was a 50% women's representation, so gender equal cabinet, which was one of the few in the world at the time. We've lost that since, and now we have 8 out of 22, which is 36%, still not very little. We have only 1 of 2 female presidents in Africa. We have a woman chair of the election board, we have a woman president of the Supreme Court. So I think women are actually really well represented in formal politics and the leadership at the highest level. But of course, we shouldn't be complacent. As I mentioned, we've already seen the trend where we're losing that representation. From 50% of ministers, now we have 36%, and it's worrying if that trend continues because we will lose everything that the women's rights movement has worked on. Will be lost if this trend continues. But of course, that's always the problem when you have political appointments, when who is in power or who sits at the ministerial table is determined solely by the powers or the political party that's won the election, then that's a problem because they can always decide in the next election, perhaps no women or maybe just 1 woman minister. So it's worrying, and we need to build on making these changes sustainable. It's a great start, but as we notice that we're already losing the trend, I think women in these positions have to fight really hard to not lose their gains, not just for themselves, but for other women. It's really important to work on mentorship. Leadership is still really designed for men, so women are under a lot of pressure to fit into that, and there's really an expectation that they'll fail. So a lot of political positions, for example, really require huge sacrifices that are very difficult for women to make, particularly if they're mothers. Long meetings that sometimes last all day and night, on the weekend. So it's really quite hard to balance that with parenting. So I think for me, a key area to mitigate this would be to really, if you really want structural change, make it easier for women to come. Don't expect them to come and fit into the places that have been created for men. And it's not a healthy balance for men either. It's a better work-life balance, better responsibilities, just a more humane way of doing politics, but also of doing their work. That's one. And secondly, as someone who works in the women's rights movement, a strategy that I really believe in is women supporting each other. And we've really seen that work. There was a time we only had one woman minister. Now we have 8 out of 22. And if they work together well, and if women in other areas of leadership work together well, support each other, create forums, then that creates some sort of balance. It balances out the pressure. I think gender equality is important not just for women, not just because it's our constitutionally given rights to have an equal stand and an equal representation, an equal say in how our lives are governed and how Ethiopia is run. It's also good for the country. A gender equal and a gender just society means everyone is happier, everyone is freer, everyone lives lives free of violence. It's more equitable. When men and women work outside the home, it means more money for the family, it means healthier outcomes for children, it means better education. It's really a win-win solution. It's really unfortunate that as a society we haven't embraced it yet. So that's how I understand the sustainability of what we do now. it's important to take stock of how far we've come, like we said, but realize that everything we're doing is really to build not just a better tomorrow, but to make tomorrow possible at all. Say happy International Women's Day. It's an important day to mark, to stop and celebrate ourselves, to celebrate women and men who work for gender equality, to thank them, to celebrate how far we've come, but also take a breath and try and think about how long we still have to go. So happy March 8th to all of us.